Thank you. Hello and welcome to the January 25th board meeting of the Appoquinimink School Board. I'm Michelle Wall. Welcome to everybody in the room and everybody joining us on Zoom tonight. The board went into executive session at 5 o'clock at the motion of Ms. Graham and the second of Ms. DeWitt to talk about legal and personnel matters. We're going to start this meeting the way we start all meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Burrows, are there any changes to our agenda this evening? You're welcome.
All right. There is one change. We do have public comments. We have Sophia, and I apologize for this, Kimaleski, she's a student. And we have her presentation. Steve Byers, Michael McGibbon, Christopher Duvall. That's it.
Thank you very much. No other adjustments?
And just for the sake of the topic of public comment, I'd like to move public comment to item between item 7C and D.
Okay. So then moving on in the agenda, we'll start with reports.
Yes, which are our name, but we'll.
No reports this evening, so moving on to new business.
Yep.
New business?
I'd just like to start the night, though, by recognizing two former school board members that are in the audience. We have Representative Kevin Hensley and Julie Johnson.
Thank you for joining us. The first item under new business is an excessive parcel public notice. Mr. Loftus.
I'm doing the parcel.
Dr. Burrows.
I'll do it. So we have publicly noticed a piece of property that's for sale, excess land at the front of Summit. Just to give some context of that, there is a home that is at the front of Summit campus that is not owned by the school district. Our property kind of surrounds that home at this point. We're looking to access some of the land that is around that home so it can be one parcel. So we have gone through the process of offering it to the different state agencies and the county agencies. So now we are having a public meeting and to take proposals for the purchase of that piece of land. We have received one proposal and they are here tonight to present their proposal. So the floor is yours.
Yes, please. Thank you.
A diagram, or you explained at least where the parcel is. So it's on the southeast corner. My name is Quinn Johnson. I'm representing Savray Properties, or ourselves, as the potential purchaser of the excess land. As the superintendent, Matt Burrows, stated, it is located on that southwest corner of the campus where there currently is a home located. And anyone driving by would think that that parcel goes to the corner, but it does not. The land actually stops right at that house. And so we are willing to purchase the excess land to combine it into one property, which will be approximately 2.5 plus acres, with the approval to move forward by the board through the public process. We then work on a actual contract for the purchase. And then at our expense, petition the county for the subdivision process to make it the 2.5 plus acres, within the intent to work towards an early education facility there at that site. It would be a partnership in sense with the district by having it located there as part of the campus, a separate property, but it would offer early childhood education for infants on up for the community as well as the staff. We feel is a benefit to the staff there at that location. Clearly, the area is continuing to grow, which is why we're having the discussion also about the referendum and the added school. So it's certainly a need that is a challenge for this area, a challenge that is because of finding property that meets the requirements for an early child care facility is also difficult within the southern Newcastle County because of the large parcels that are now going to development. So with that, we did submit a proposal that met all the requirements. We ask for your favorable review of that and glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
So first I have a question for our superintendent, and then I'll have a question for our potential buyer. So Matt, tonight we're having a public hearing. This was the opportunity for there was a legal notice published, and this is the opportunity for anybody who's interested in purchasing this property to come forward and make a proposal. So Mr. Johnson is here. And I guess we'll see if there are any others. What is the next step in the process after tonight?
That's a very good question, Richard. And we're the first, according to the Office of Management and Budget, we're the first people kind of through this process, and we've kind of worked through the process. So we will have another hearing if anyone has any public comment at our February 6th board meeting after that, and then the board will decide moving forward with which proposal.
Right. And so I've seen a drawing. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me here tonight, but can Matt, can either you or Mr. Johnson, can you remind me how much land are we actually proposing to transfer to the buyer here?
It's 1.75 acres in total.
1.75 acres. And so what is the per acre price? I know the ad said $190,000 is the minimum offer. What's that work out to on a per acre price?
Well, that's going to be over $100,000 per acre of suburban zoned land, not commercial zoned.
Right.
The proposal does a couple things. One, it sets a minimum price, but then also puts in that there's two appraisals that will have to be done. And at the time, if the appraisals come back, the average of those two higher than the 190, then that will be then the purchase price. If it comes back less than 190, it has been set at 190 as the minimum purchase price for it. And then.
Right. And so tonight, as I understand it, then, Dr. Burrows, all we're doing is we're going to see if there's any other proposals. We would select a proposal or perhaps no proposal. But either select a proposal or no proposals. If we select a proposal, it moves forward to the next step, which is the appraisal process that Mr. Johnson just described, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I will say that in my experience in commercial real estate and residential real estate, $190,000 for 1.75 acres strikes me as a pretty good price. But if the appraisers want to come back and say we should, fair market value is higher, that would be great. So those are my questions.
And just to add this for the public too, this does not mean that you are approving a child care facility at site. That's actually for the county to have to decide. All that the board is doing is approving the opportunity to then enter into a formal contract, which then would allow at that time the ability of us to go petition the county for both the subdivision, which is putting the parcels together as to one, and then getting the approvals for an early child care facility at that site, which is going to take it's quite an extensive process. So right now, all you're doing is just saying, yes, we will entertain the option of that potential sale.
I'm pursuant to, just so we're clear too, pursuant to the terms that are in the notice, future
Right.
use of the property once it's sold is limited to daycare center, community center, church. I presume residential since there's already a house there, but that's it. So, if we do sell it at a good price, it'll also be more restricted than all the other uses that might be available under the zoning code. And even if you got it rezoned, you'd still be stuck to the uses that we specified when we deeded the property to you.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is consistent with current county code for that zoning as well. It's not like you're
Right.
creating a new zoning code. That is what is consistent with the county as far
Right,
as
but
allowable
we
use.
don't, my point is, we don't have to be worried that, oh, we're going to sell this land for 190,000.
No.
And then you're going to turn around and rezone it and put a McDonald's
No,
or something.
no
there.
other commercial. It's still restricted
Right,
by the district for its future use.
right. Okay, do we want to see if there's anybody else here?
Is there anyone else here with a proposal?
Hearing none, do we take a vote to move forward with this proposal, and then the next meeting we would vote to accept the proposal or not accept, correct?
Yeah, Madam President, I'll make a motion that we move forward with the proposal that has been presented and described to us tonight, 190,000 for approximately 1.75 acres, subject to the deed restrictions, subject to getting two appraisals that support that price, and if those appraisals indicate a higher price, the higher price, and subject, of course, to getting a final contract written and approved, which I presume we'll do at our next meeting.
Is there a second? I have a motion by Mr. Forston to accept the proposal as presented and a second by Ms. Graham. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on in the agenda, the next agenda item is FY24 budget cuts. Dr. Burrows and Mr. Loftus.
All right. After the, so we're required, I'm getting this, we're required by the state to have 1 month's salary carryover to get us through the summer. And for us, that's $4.1 million. We knew at preliminary budget time that we weren't going to have the $4.1 million carryover to make it through, through the summer. But the state allows you to have less than the $4.1 million or a 1 month carryover if you're going out to referendum. So we had that, our referendum. Unfortunately, we weren't successful on December 12th with our referendum, but we have to give a financial position report to the state by the end of this month. So our gap was $400,000. So after we did not pass our December 12th referendum, that required us to then look at $400,000 in cuts to get us to that $4.1 million. Mr. Loftus is going to outline what those cuts are, and then he's going to roll into the financial position as well.
Yeah, so just for the people here on Zoom and in the audience, the reason for the carryover is the state, when they get their income taxes, everybody files their taxes usually in April. So by the time July 1st rolls around for the start of the new fiscal year, the state has all the revenue, for the most part, that they're going to need for the entire year already in the bank. With school districts, property tax bills go out in July. And then usually for most of us, it goes to your mortgage company, and then they, through escrow, will then pay that bill. Sometime we'll receive that bill from the county. We'll receive the revenue sometime in late October. So the purpose of carryover is that the state is saying, we need to know that the districts have cash on hand to be able to carry themselves and pay their bills, meet their obligations through the summer until they get to October. So that's a point with the carryover. If you could advance to the next slide. So once again, with the referendum, we knew that we were getting to the point where, I mean, the whole point of going to referendum was to make sure that we would have the operating cash on hand over the next several years to meet the financial commitments of the district. So the cabinet convened after referendum, and we looked at making reductions. And what we came up with was a 5% reduction to schools' budgets. And if you were looking at the preliminary budget, and soon the final budget will be produced, the schools have an allocation that they receive to help with some of the things going on within the school. So we give a pot of money to each principal so that they can manage different things within their school and have some autonomy of things going on within their school. So that was reduced by 5%. There was some personnel shifts that we were able to do that saved some money. And then the operating departments, the curriculum department, technology department, the business office, human resources, facilities, other district office budgets, we were reducing those budgets by more than 5%, making some significant cuts in those budgets in order to hit the $400,000 number that we needed to carve out of the budget to get to where we need to be at the end of this year.
So, Mr. Loftus, just so we're clear, though, I mean, these are your recommendations to the board. The board actually has to vote to make these cuts, right?
Correct. And this is part of.
Presumably, you're asking us to do that tonight? Yeah. Okay.
And now, last meeting, we talked about the financial position report. The financial position report is the report that's required by the state of Delaware to ensure for us to ensure them that we are going to meet the 4.1 million commitment. So that report, as I mentioned in the last board meeting, that report doesn't look at where you're making the cuts. It just wants to know that you're carving the $400,000 out of your budget or out of your spending plan to make it to the 4.1 million that you need. At that meeting, however, the board made the decision that they wanted to weigh in on where the cuts were being made. So I'm happy to discuss those cuts at this time.
No, I mean, obviously you're still making the presentation and the board may have questions about a proposed cut or two, but I didn't want, and there's also, I think, some public comment coming up too. I didn't want people to think that what you're presenting is already cast in stone. I mean, it may be that I or others have questions or want to maybe make some suggestions about different, maybe that we agree with everything you say, but we haven't voted on it quite yet.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, in terms of what the cuts are, this is what we're looking at basically. So these are the categories that we're looking at that gets us to the 400,000. There's one other slide, I believe, if you can advance forward. Oh, so that's in the other thing. Okay, never mind.
So what we're looking for now is we're looking for approval of the $400,000 in cuts that we're recommending. Is there any questions before we get to that point? Okay.
Are there other questions about specific cuts?
I did not, was there a question there? I just didn't hear what you were saying.
I have a question about the personnel shift category, but I think that's something that we'll probably have to discuss in executive session. So I'm not sure that we're prepared to vote right now, and it's on that.
So the personnel shift at the secondary level occurred that we had we were supporting a school with additional administrator we were using the additional administrator to support the school, and we had a retirement at another one of our schools. And so we were able to, as part of the savings, move that administrator to where we had the retirement, which then saves the $25,000 on not having another administrator, the local side of another administrator.
I have a question. I'm sorry, Ms.
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I want to caveat with this, just saying that it wasn't an easy decision and a decision we want to make because we believe that school was doing well with the additional support. It just, with the financial situation that we were in, we made that move.
Let's do it. Thank you. So thank you all for doing this allocation. I'm just wondering, is there something that we can do to not impact student services and special education. I think both of those are important, and the reason we are here to do what's best for kids. Just wondering, can that $5,000 for each one of those can something else be increased? Yeah, allocated somewhere else?
So that $5,000, and the people who leave those departments are here, so please feel to disagree with me on this, is not going to impact delivery of service to kids. It's more of internal services, like internal with employees.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions?
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the financial budget reductions of $400,000 as presented.
Excuse me, I have a motion by Mr. Forst and a second by Mr. Abrams to approve the budget reductions as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? I think we all have lots of concerns, but we're in a no-win situation here. Anyone else? Here-
Questions or comments?
Yeah, yes, no questions or comments, lots of concerns. All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the next agenda item, the financial position report, Mr. Loftus.
So as I mentioned before, the state of Delaware requires that we present a financial position report that just shows that we will meet our obligation of the $4.1 million in carryover. That report was submitted to you. This report includes the cuts that we described. And once again, it includes the $400,000 in reduced spending. It doesn't really dictate where those cuts are coming from. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the financial position report, but we do need approval and signature for that report.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the financial report as presented, and that financial report is now being made with the fact that we just approved $400,000 in cuts. So I move to approve the financial position report as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Forston and a second by Ms. DeWitt to approve the financial position report as presented. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're going to switch the agenda up a little bit and move back to public comment. Is that correct, Dr. Burrows? That was your request. Before we start public comment, I have prepared remarks that I am supposed to read on behalf of the district. The board encourages speakers to be constructive in the spirit of identifying issues and solutions that will better serve students. In an effort to afford an opportunity to hear from all members of the community who wish to address the board, comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or less per speaker. The time cannot be given to another. Repetition of matters previously presented in public comment is discouraged. Public comment is an opportunity to address the board. The board will not participate in discussions or respond to public comments. Members of the public are urged to address concerns at the local school level and with district office staff prior to addressing the board. No person shall initiate charges or complaints against an individual district employee at a board meeting. Such charges or complaints shall be presented to the superintendent or the board in writing signed by the complainant. Any defamatory or abusive remarks should be called out of order, and the speaker's privilege of addressing the board may be terminated. In order to further student business and our mission, we limit or eject attendees, virtual or in person, who disrupt the meeting or engage in vulgar or obscene expression. That being said, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Before board comments kick off, I just want to say that I've heard from some members of the community about school lunches and the kind of the tradition that occurs now of people paying it forward in the Starbucks line and things like that. And there was a question if contact information could be made available for someone who wanted to pay off a school lunch debt. instead of paying it forward in the Starbucks line. So I have contact information for Janice Van Decker that I'm going to share. Her email is janice.vandecker@apo.ke.de.us. So if you're in here in the room or you're tuning in on Zoom and you have a desire to pay it forward instead of buying Starbucks for the person in line in front of you, please reach out to Janice. That being said, I will go in order of the public comment. And I believe first we have a student joining us, Sophia. Welcome. Thanks for being here. The microphone is right over there for you. You're going to see up on the screen, and then over there, there's a 3-minute timer. And understand that you're presenting to us in Spanish, and we've been given your remarks in English. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am Sofia Milewski. I am a Spanish immersion student, and I was invited here tonight to give my speech on teachers' salaries. The English translation is available. Hola, me llamo Sofia Milewski, tengo 13 años, y hoy voy a hablar sobre por qué yo creo que los trabajadores de las escuelas deben tener salarios mejores. Entonces, ¿por qué deben tener salarios mejores los trabajadores de las escuelas? Los maestros hacen un trabajo muy importante para nuestra comunidad, el mundo y simplemente Everett Meredith Middle School, mi escuela. Mis padres también son maestros y eso es parte de la razón de la que porque este tema es tan importante en mi vida. Estas personas forman el futuro, enseñan a los estudiantes quienes creen el futuro. Por esto deben pagarles mejor y necesitan más respeto. Un mundo sin maestros es como una familia, sin el amor. Ellos son muy importantes en nuestras vidas. Según Rand Corporation, por sus siglos en inglés, 66% de maestros estadounidenses dicen que su salario no es adecuado. Y de acuerdo con Education Week, más de la mitad de maestros del kinder al 12º grado ganan dinero de otro trabajo, no solo siendo maestros. Esto significa que no ganan suficiente dinero solo siendo maestros. Y de acuerdo con USA Facts, se les pagan a los maestros menos que los típicos trabajadores del tiempo completo. Por esto, muchísimos maestros están dejando la profesión. Si ustedes no quieren aprender únicamente de computadores, como muchísimos estudiantes están haciendo ahora porque no hay suficientes maestros, tienen que hacer algo. Cuando yo veo a los maestros trabajando duro cada día con estudiantes y otros profesores solo para aprender que tienen un salario tan bajo, estoy triste. En conclusión, yo quiero que la comunidad trabaje para proteger los derechos de los maestros. Podemos votar para leyes y regulaciones que protegen a sus derechos, protestar de forma pacífica o escribir a los líderes de nuestra comunidad, donar dinero a organizaciones que ayudan a los maestros o simplemente decir algo bueno a un maestro en tu vida para mostrar por qué son tan importantes. Yo creo que juntos podemos trabajar para hacer un cambio y dar más respeto a los trabajadores de las escuelas. Juntos podemos hacerlo. Thank you.
I would like to just make a quick comment. Last night, 2 board members, myself and Toshiba, attended the Soapbox project at Meredith, and we heard Señorita Sophia speak. So we invited her to speak because we thought that her topic about teacher salaries was very impactful, and it resonates with what we're dealing with right now. So we thank you for coming tonight.
Nice job, Sophia.
I would not have been able to recite that speech in English, let alone in Spanish. So that was very impressive, and I'm very proud of our Spanish immersion program, too.
Moving on in public comment, Mr. Byers. There will be a timer. We actually observe the 3 minutes.
I'm so lucky I get to follow her. All right, good evening. My name is Steve Byers. I'm a high school social studies teacher at Middletown High School. I'm also the proud president of the Appoquinimink Education Association. And I stand here tonight on behalf of 1,100 teachers, specialists, and related services providers who work tirelessly every day to provide the best education for the students they serve in Appoquinimink. And I want to speak to you about the next referendum scheduled for April. I urge you, the members of the board, to keep the operational request of 36 cents specifically dedicated to the recruitment and retention of educators in this district. By keeping the operational amount the same, you are telling your employees and our community that you support your staff and that you know what it takes to attract and retain the best educators. Since 2020, the educator shortage has left many of our schools with significant staff shortages. The shortages have led to many staff covering classes to ensure all students receive the services they need. In many cases, some staff must provide coverage every day. This is certainly not what is best for students, and it's not good for your employees either. Having to cover classes when we already have very full plates leaves teachers and staff members overwhelmed, exhausted, and looking for a way out. I sincerely believe that if the amount dedicated to staff retention is reduced in our next referendum, the current staff shortages will only get worse. More staff will leave for better pay in other districts in order to better provide for their families. By keeping the operational ask the same, you are telling your employees that you value them. It also demonstrates to the community that you will do whatever it takes to attract and keep high-quality staff in order to provide for the best education for the students in our district. Generating the revenue we so desperately need allows us to be more competitive and keep the experienced and skilled veteran staff. It is your employees who keep this district consistently ranked as #1 in the state. We are at a great crossroads for this district. Where others may see potential crisis, I see a potential to make positive change. You have a hard decision to make tonight. Sometimes the hardest decision is the right decision. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Commitment is what transforms a promise into reality." I implore you, remain committed to the employees who have remained committed to our community. So once again, on behalf of AEA bargaining unit members, I ask that you stick to 36 for educator recruitment and retention. I thank you for your consideration, and I thank you for your dedication to our school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Next, I have Michael McKibben. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Michael McKibben. I teach hard of hearing students all throughout the Appoquinimink School District. I'm here tonight to say what Steve said. I'm here tonight to implore you, the board, to not change 1 cent of the operational referendum. I'm here to implore you tonight to maintain that 36-cent part of the referendum that you courageously and unprecedentedly gave to educator compensation. I attended the community town hall meeting the other day, and speaker after speaker made it very clear that they wouldn't support the referendum if their taxes were raised even just 1 dime. It didn't matter what Dr. Burrows said or what Mr. Loftus said. They were not going to support the referendum under any conditions. The staff town hall meetings were also well attended, and they had a different perception at the staff town hall meetings. Their concern was that 36 cents was going to be walked back, that you were going to renege on that courageous promise you made to retain and recruit the best teachers in the state and keep Appoquinimink the #1 district in the state. They were also concerned that if the referendum didn't pass, the $5 million budget shortfall would fall on their shoulders. You hear the same stories I hear, that our educators feel that they're overworked, underpaid, undervalued, and they're burned out. You hear the stories that I hear, that Steve said, that they're covering classes every day because of the teacher shortage. They're giving up their planning periods. You hear the stories of staff leaving in the middle of the school year to go to a higher paid Newcastle County district. You hear the stories that it's hard to hire a math teacher, a science teacher, or a special education teacher, or a school psychologist. You know that the money you earmarked, that courageous decision you made to retain and recruit staff to keep Appoquinimink #1 is the right decision. It's the correct decision. Staff don't want you to walk that back. Staff want you to support that. If you can think of it in terms of a baseball game. I know you guys like sports metaphors on the board, right? The game is late. It's the top of the 9th inning. The no tax anti-referendum folks have the bases loaded and there's no outs. You need to support your staff. You need to support the home team and the families who supported that referendum by keeping your best pitcher in the game. You need to keep number 36 in that game. Stick to that 36 part of the referendum. Let us bat in the bottom of the ninth inning, and let us, the staff, win this in April. Go Appo.
Mr. Duval.
I can't do this in Spanish. I don't have an Abe Lincoln quote. I'm reading this going, I'm screwed. Like,
We're just
couldn't
glad
even
you're
print
here.
it out today. Anyway, it's been a day. Good evening. Thank you for listening to us tonight. My name is Chris Val, and I'm an Appo High Chemistry and AP Environmental Science teacher and a parent of 2 who lives in Middletown. To respect your time, I'm not going to beat around the bush, but please allow me a minute to refresh our memories. First, the original referendum was very prudent and necessary. All of it. You have never been in the business of swelling the coffers just to do so. Your reasoning was sound, and the need was glaringly apparent for every penny that you were asking of the community. Appo has long worn the crown for planning for the future within their budgets. We have been working together for almost a decade now to address the huge inequity of Appo teachers having significantly lower pay versus their colleagues in other Newcastle County districts. Back in 2016, our community supported a 15-cent operating referendum to fund growth and begin catching teachers up to area salaries. According to the district website, 6 months later, the state cut $2 million in annual funding. That meant 9 of those 15 cents just approved by voters were required to address the shortfall. My family and I moved here for the schools, as so many do, in 2017. We escaped an awful, hollowed out, dystopian, no sports, can we get our school library back kind of school district where folks had voted no way too many times and were living with the consequences. So my wife and I initially thought the state cut might be our own fault, bringing financial luck in from out of state. We were so impressed with how the district could financially walk and chew gum at the same time. One of the first things we learned about was the crazy growth being addressed by a 10-year strategic plan, a 10-year school district strategic plan. That was even a thing. In 2019, our community supported a 26.9 cent operating referendum to add constables and fund growth, along with a first down payment to fund a round of raises. Then COVID upended everyone's plans. Despite this, we began to get back on track with raising teacher salaries a few percent since then. Not much progress, but given the situation, it was understood that any progress was good progress. Now it's 2024, and the board narrowly missed passing a referendum to increase operating costs by 43 cents with 36 cents for staff compensation. No one wants higher taxes. Unfortunately, this is the local way to handle growth while attracting and keeping staff that are desperately needed for our growing district. Feedback leading up to and since that vote has shown strong support throughout the district for increases to allow teacher compensation to finally catch up. The referendum, when it passes in April, will still have room to finish the job with teacher salaries, but will also still have the lowest school taxes per pupil. So I'm here tonight as an Appoquinimink High science teacher and as a single income parent of 2 in the district.
I have to
To
call
remind
time
you-
on you, Chris.
That we're still here.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming out. Moving on in the agenda, we're going to go back to new business, and the last item under new business is the April 23rd capital operational referendum. Dr. Burrows.
You go to the next slide. So tonight in the presentation, I'm going to go to the date of the next referendum, the components of the 2023 referendum, upcoming board meeting dates that we will talk about the upcoming referendum, immediate impact, which we already just covered, so I won't spend too much time on that, and then next year's impact on June 2025. So working with the Department of Elections, our next referendum date is April 23rd, 2024. So our 2023 referendum, as was mentioned, we had a 43-cent operational ask. 36 of the 43 cents was for educator compensation. And then the other 7 cents consisted of safety and security, operational needs due to growth, and technology. On the capital side, for 3 cents, we were looking for a new elementary school on Green Giant Road and a new middle and high school on the Summit campus. And then for 1 cent, because it's 100% local, was for safety improvements, the Alfred G. Bus lot. So tonight we're here to talk about the referendum, and we appreciate the comments, the public comments. We're having this special meeting to talk about the impact of us not passing a referendum. I'll own that on the first referendum, I always believe in running a positive campaign and being optimistic and telling people what they're going to get, not what they're not going to get. And also, I realize that not all of you guys are listening to every board meeting that we possibly have and the exciting stuff when we talk about the budget and things like that.
It's all on YouTube, and it is riveting viewing. And thank you to the chemistry teacher who recognized our 10-year plan. And we have lots of plans like that that are long-term. But so thank you for noticing that.
And you're welcome every month.
And so did not make an emphasis on where we are financially and what was needed financially. So if you were a community member and you haven't paid attention to every board meeting and every financial report that Mr. Loftus gives, you didn't know where we were as a district. And I didn't cause enough public alarm or them seeing the need for the referendum outside of us looking to get some nice new things, which was not the case. So tonight, after I just listened to the benefits of Spanish immersion program, we're going to talk about some things that we're going to have to look at reducing if we do not pass a referendum in 2024. And then in February 6th, we're going to hopefully the board's going to have an opportunity to look at everything and have a final vote on what we're going to go forward with on April 23rd. So I already talked about this. Eric and I talked about the $400,000 in cuts. Any questions, additional questions from the board on that? Okay, we'll move to the next slide.
Well, Matt, I'll just ask one question just because it may come up or people may ask. We voted for those cuts. I do believe with the right referendum, it'll pass in April. If we pass the referendum in April, do those cuts get restored?
Yes, those cuts can be restored back. If we do pass a successful referendum.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. When we pass a successful referendum. All right, next slide, please. So just some history on this, because we hear that the district needs to do a better job managing their money, or why don't you just cut some stuff and you'll be able to make it, or don't build things as nice as they're being built, or do the best with what you can, or do more with less. So as this was mentioned, there's a lot of planning that goes into place. And we know as a district, if you lived in our community or been part of our community, we're on a 3-year referendum cycle. And the reason for the 3-year referendum cycle, and this is all we plan out what's going to happen, is that we have the significant amount of growth we have. And then just with costs just go up, as all you guys are well aware, you're paying more now than you paid last year or the year before for things. Our costs just naturally go up. So when we did the 2019 referendum, it was a 3-year referendum. And when you initially pass a referendum, you have a surplus or you have a carryover, a significant carryover as when you pass a referendum. And the reason why you have that is because over time, your expenses are going to go up. Every district is like that. So for like employee steps, your budget's going to go up, or for programming and things like that. In our district, we're in a unique situation as compared to the rest of the districts in Newcastle County. our costs also go up because we grow 300 to 400 students each year, or 40 to 50 staff members each year to meet the demands of those students. So that also has to be factored in. So when we talk about, well, we've gone to referendum to try to close or bring us closer to other districts. Well, we know about $1 million of our additional revenue goes automatically to hiring new teachers. Like, to get new teachers 100% locally goes to that. So when we're trying to close that gap, other districts aren't having to deal with that. They're just having to deal with the increased cost, not the growth and all that. So it even makes it that much harder for us to close the gap because we have money going towards new employees at that point.
Yeah,
So,
Matt, I don't think we can, I mean, there's a lot, and we'll do more education along these lines. But when I first got on the board, another school district, the one furthest to the north, had significantly more students than we did. Today, we're like 3,000 students more than them. Their enrollment has been shrinking. Their tax base is already larger than ours. Their property tax rate is already larger than ours. So every year, as they get fewer students, they're actually getting kind of more money to spend per kid when you think about it. And we're facing just the opposite here in Appoquinimink. Every year we're growing. Hey, it's a great place to live. I love living in Middletown, Odessa, Townsend. I love south of the canal, and other people are figuring that out, and they're welcome. But it also means we have more kids every year, a tremendous amount of more kids every year. We also have the lowest tax base of any of the school districts in Newcastle County. We have the lowest tax rate. And I think we've been able to get away with that. I say get away with it. We're able to do that because we are so careful. We do have a 10-year plan, and we do have very prudent fiscal planning. But as this chart shows, that'll only get you so far. And so, I mean, built into our lowest tax rate in the county is the fact that every 3, or in this case, we were actually lucky, we were able to go a little longer, but every 3 to 4 years, we have to go back and say, hey, we need a little bit more to keep up with the growth, to keep up with inflation, which has been like 6% the last 2 years. And so it's a different situation here as compared to the other school districts that you might see and say, well, they're not doing this in other school districts. Although even those school districts are going out to referendum this year. Anyway, Matt, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, thank you. So as you can see on the chart, your revenue kind of stays consistent. It's a flat line, but our expenditures go up. So you see where we have a surplus, and then you get into a deficit. And at 3 years, then you go out for another referendum, you have a surplus, then we get into a deficit. It's not that we're just firstly spending money, it's what happens over time. But you also might hear, well, other districts don't have to don't go out the referendum every 3 years. Well, they're, to the point that's just made, some of them are reducing, some of them are maintaining, so they're not having those costs that go up as rapidly as what we have.
I think, right now, the purpose of this presentation is to talk about what's next. But we all know a referendum is next. And we know that it's the responsibility of the board and the district, the community, and quite frankly, all of you, to educate people on the why. So from every single town hall I attended, which was all 3, Monday night we spent 3.5 hours trying to dispel myths amongst community members, misconceptions. We will do our best to continue to equip you with resources to do that and to inform our community. I mean, it's up to everyone to decide their yes or no. All we need to do is tell them why. Mr. Forreston often says, if I come up to you and say, can I raise your taxes? Your answer is probably no. But if I tell you what it's for and why and how it works in Delaware, usually it's a little more compelling. And so that's our task going forward. I'll let Dr. Burrows continue his presentation tonight, but I know Mr. Forreston hit on a lot of things in his comments, like we have the lowest tax rate. Our property tax is different because of our mainly residential community instead of commercial infrastructure. Mr. Loftus makes a really good point about commercial infrastructure when he talks about the amount of money a Home Depot brings in to the district, but like the Christina School District has 3 Home Depots. So there are good talking points that we like to equip everyone with and dispel for our community and educate, but that's not necessarily part of tonight.
No, I think it's good. Educate, because there is a lot of myths out there. So this is the part where I don't like talking about it because it's not optimistic, it's pessimistic, but I think that we need to inform the community the impact of us not passing a referendum. So if we do not pass a referendum on April 23rd, which we're going to, but if we do not pass a referendum April 23rd, we would have to cut $5 million just to have the carryover to get through on June of 2025, the $4.1 million. You might ask, well, how do we get to that $5 million? I've heard out there, oh, they're just threatening and they're just making up a number that they need to cut just to get you to vote yes. That's not the case. The $5 million where that comes from is, so $3 million is for us just to continue operating at the level we're operating. If we just rolled over into next year, we didn't hire any new teachers, we didn't give any step increases, there were no raises, and we just kept everything exactly the same, we need $3 million in order to do that. And to hire the 40 to 50 new employees that we would need to hire with growth is an additional $1 million on the local side for us. Then with the contractual guaranteed steps that are in there, so steps have to be part of that, is another $1 million. So that's how we get to the $5 million that we would need to just to carry over to have the $4.1 million carryover that we need to have by state regulation.
Matt, this is just so we're clear, we're only talking about the operational side right now. I mean, this doesn't even address the construction part of the referendum. We asked for 3 cents, which is about $25 a year. It's like $2.50 a month or $2.25 a month. I'm just trying to do the math in my head. But on the construction side, we were only looking for a very, very small tax increase, and yet that was going to get us 3 new schools. It's going to get us a state-of-the-art high school, a spanking new middle school, a fabulous new elementary school. The kids are coming. Look at our 10-year plan. Every year we've had more kids. If we don't get the construction budget passed, we didn't even try to factor those costs into what it does to us operationally. But we got to put those kids somewhere, right? And so that means we overcrowd and stuff our existing high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. We need to put out a lot of trailers. We pay 100% of the cost of those temporary trailers. They're meant to be temporary, but if we can't build new schools, they're going to be more than temporary, right? So those are tremendous costs associated with the construction referendum. In addition to this, the failure, if it fails, and it shouldn't, because it's a no-brainer. But if it were, we'd also have the additional costs associated with that, because we've got to put the kids somewhere. They're here in our district, and we need to have classroom space for them. So I would just wanted to add that, because I noticed it wasn't included in that $5 million.
I appreciate that.
And additionally, with the capital funds, it takes a really heavy lift on the district to approach Dover with what our requests are. And we go every year with a list, and they come back to us with what they approve. And they approved these 3 projects. If these 3 projects are presented to the community one time and it fails, we get a second chance. So we go a second time and it fails, we don't get any more chances. The money is allocated to another school district and another project because they think their community will support that project. I think it's important that people know that if it doesn't pass this time, that the money doesn't come to us.
Right, and the state is paying 75% of the cost, but they want us to pass the referendum. I'm sorry, 77, I was rounding again. But they want us to know, they want us to be committed as well. It's a very modest commitment for what you get. And, so it's just so important that we get that construction referendum passed. We'll have a lot more to say about that, obviously.
Well, and one of the biggest misunderstandings, at least at the town hall, that I think we cleared up for some folks was the difference between capital and operational expenses. And you can't use them for each other, because a lot of people ask why we can't take the money from the state from a capital project to pay our teachers better. You're not allowed. It's a state law. But if you don't know, you don't know, and you wonder, or people want to know why our buildings are built so nice. There's a funding formula plan. We have to follow the plan. We have to build within the formula. We have to go with the bids we get. And we do all of that every month at this meeting because we build all the time in APO. So if anybody wants to follow along for that, again, come back. February 6th, we'll probably be talking about that.
Well, in the new middle school and high school, one of the innovative things that folks in the district came up with, the Odessa High School and Odessa Cantwell's Bridge, middle school, they share cafeteria, they share the auditorium. And so by sharing some of those amenities, if you built them as standalone schools, they'd each have their own. But by building a school that's kind of connected that way, we were able to get those dollars to go even further and get some even nicer things for those 2 schools. So I mean, I give a lot of credit to our construction and design team and our superintendent for coming up with that concept. So part of the reason we have such nice schools is because we're very innovative in the way we build them.
Dr. Barrows, I heard a large number about the trailers. Can you tell us how much it would cost to get trailers if that was the direction we had to go?
Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, so in order to put a trailer in, there's some startup cost with that because you have to build the foundation, you have to put in water and electric and all that. So it's about $100,000 initial cost. And then the lease, I believe, is around.
Per trailer.
Per trailer. And then the lease runs about $25,000 per year. And then on top of that, then is that when the useful life of that trailer, or say you build a school and you no longer need that trailer, then it's another $100,000 for them to then cap those utilities and to tear down the base and to haul away the trailer.
Does that include maintenance?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't include
maintenance.
maintenance. Like this year, we had to go into some of our modulars and do repairs and things like that. And also the $100,000 that was pre-COVID. I'm not sure what the cost is going to be because we have to attach to the building for safety reasons. And so they're not a long-term commitment. I think I have someone that's taught in a trailer here, Danielle. I'm sure she would be glad to.
Well, plus it's
share her-
100% local funds.
Right,
So when we
so-
talk about new building projects from the state, like Mr. Forson said, it's 77% covered by the state. A trailer is covered $0 by the state.
Well, and just do the math. Again, I'm going to try to do it in my head. 3 schools, high school, middle school, elementary school, that's roughly 3,000 kids. I'm going to round it off to make the math easy. 3,000 kids. Each trailer might be good for what, 30 kids, Keith? We have our head of construction here.
About 30 is about right.
So 30 times 100 is 3,000. So we would need 100 trailers. It's $100,000 to do the installation for each of those 100 trailers. Then you have $25,000 a year in lease. We haven't added in maintenance. You're going to have some other hallways or some way to connect these trailers. Kids are going inside and outside during the course of the day to get from trailer to trailer. You end up pretty quickly spending more money on a bunch of trailers that wear out over time than you do on your share of the cost of the new schools. And it's real money and it's out of our operating budget rather than our capital budget. So it's a real disaster if people vote against that construction part of the referendum. And I just say, if anybody's watching or listening and they're thinking about voting against that, please call me, please find me and let me talk to you before you do that, because it really is a no-brainer to vote for the construction side of the referendum. I'll talk to you about the operational side, and I get that there are some pros and cons at the margins. We do need to support our teachers. I'm fully supportive of our teachers.
Richard, let's finish the presentation.
Okay, but anyway, the construction side's important.
So when we looked at the $5 million, we looked at 5 buckets here. Increased class sizes due to staffing, reduction in classroom support, elimination, reduction of after-school activities, substantial reductions of budgets, and significant changes to the immersion programming. And I'll start with this. This is not stuff we want to do. We're required, though, by law, to make sure that the 4 cores are taught and that there's other items that are part of by law that we have to do. I may be jaded, but I think we have an excellent school district and we offer a lot of opportunities for our kids. We have kids that have a lot of opportunities that have been supported by our community, and to the simple fact that you see a lot of people move here for the opportunities that their kids are going to have in the district. Without a successful referendum, or even reducing the initial ask in some aspects, is going to have an impact on what we're going to be able to offer as opportunities to our kids. So, and I just want to say, this is not stuff we want to do. It's going to get into stuff we have to do. So open positions won't be filled. Existing positions can be cut, and reduction in related arts offerings.
The other night was 65
Correct.
currently. So we have 65 current vacancies that we would not fill.
And so this year we had the least number of class size waivers we've ever had And the year before, it was greatly reduced, and year before that, it was reduced. That will be a thing of the past. There's no way we'd be able to hit that. Reduction in support staff in schools, reduction in support staff from district office, delayed replacement and repair for classroom and school technology, and elimination of one-to-one devices at the elementary.
One-to-one devices are iPads for those who aren't familiar with the
Correct.
lingo, right?
So the
How would
reason
that-
why we say that, so just so I hear like murmuring on that side, the one-to-one devices. So in our previous referendums, 2016, we were supported 6th through 8th grade with one-to-one on iPads. In 2019, we were supported with Chromebooks 9 to 12. In that referendum, we also said we would start rolling back down in a cart modeled elementary. 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade would have cart model one-to-one devices. COVID hit, and it was necessary for K to 12 to have one-to-one devices. And so with COVID, one-time COVID money or ESSER money, we were able to purchase devices. From K to 2, we're unable to sustain that because we have not, that has not been part of a budget or was, and that we don't have COVID money anymore to continue to supplement that.
And by the way, just one of the rumors and things that I heard, I wasn't at the town hall, but I heard from people leading up to and after the town hall is, oh, Appoquinimink, you got all this COVID money. What did you do with it all? A couple of things. First, we're the 3rd largest district, lowest tax base. We also got the lowest amount of COVID money by far. And
This is a good time, Mr. Loftus. Can you please tell us the amount of COVID money our district received, and the number of students we have, the number of students Christina has, and the amount of COVID money they received?
So this is what I do. We received around $12.8 million in ESSER funds.
12.8.
And that worked out to, I know I did an analysis at one point that showed the ESSER funds received by each district divided by the number of students each district had, and we were last in the state. And not only were we last, like we had maybe $900 per student, and the next lowest was $1,900 per student. So it was a significant, significant gap there. And Christina's school district,
Who has
based on the way-
approximately 380 some odd more kids than us?
yeah, it depends on when you're looking at that number, but they were, and due to the way that the COVID funds were handed out, they received like 90 million or so.
So
Significantly
90
more.
million with the difference of 380 some odd kids to 12.8 million.
Right.
Okay, just in case anyone's hearing that for the first time in the room or on Zoom.
So the other bucket is elimination, reduction of after-school activities. We looked at elimination of after-school activities at the elementary and middle school levels. In particular, elimination of middle school sports. JV and freshman sports will become fee-based, paid play. Substantial reduction of budgets. All school budgets and departments would be significantly reduced. Reduction of supplemental resources to support teaching and learning. Decline in maintenance and repairs for all buildings, structures, fields, classrooms, equipment, etc. Significant changes to our immersion program, which very proud of the immersion program and the work that's been done in the immersion program. But yeah, this is hard to do. Stop expansion of the immersion programs to our high school levels and reduce the offerings, locations, class selections, etc. Any questions on the reductions that we just went through? So our hope is that we don't have to enact those reductions. So there's not a lot of like minute detail, like this is this much money, this is this much money. These are things though that we would have to be first on the list, and hopefully we don't have to go deeper into reductions, but I'm open to any questions.
I just reiterate your comments that this is nothing that we want to do. And there are things we definitely can't take away. And we know that a significant part of our budget already is staff. So this is not easy. I don't think any of us sit in this seat thinking, yes, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to think that kids in this community could have a different experience than my kids had in this district. Have in this district.
So the last part of the night is just our recommendation from the district and the cabinet on the April referendum, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of discussion on this. Our recommendation, and I agree, we're at a crossroads at this point. We have an opportunity as a district. As was mentioned, there's other districts that are out for referendum. Every other district either went to referendum, which was Christina for, I think it was 44 cents, right, Eric? Brandywine is out for 40 cents plus. Colonial is out for 40 cents plus, and Red Clay is out for 40 cents plus. They're all out at this point.
And none of them have the growth that we have.
Right. They don't have the growth factor that we have, and they're already paying more than what we're paying.
And they all bring in way more per penny than we do.
Their local revenue is significantly more than our local revenue. So our recommendation from the cabinet, and glad to discuss it, our educators are our most valuable resource. And we have 65 openings currently, and we will need to hire 40 to 50 new teachers next year. We're recommending keeping the compensation at what the original recommendation was. Safety and security. Safety and security. In Delaware, in the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 guns in buildings with loaded clips, and today we had 2 knives in buildings in Delaware. There has been more school shootings, unfortunately, in the last few months. I don't see how we as a group can recommend less in safety and security and take away from safety and security in the situation that we're currently in as society. Operational needs due to growth. We can't stop the kids from coming. We can't stop the 30 or the 40 to 50 new staff members we're going to need, the 300 to 400 new students that will come. That requires for us to have supplies and materials, consumables, and things like that for those kids. Technology, I mentioned, without the investment in technology, we would have to eliminate iPads from at K to second grade. And then our replacement cycle stays at where it is at 19 years on a smart board. And so there's impact to that. So when I say we didn't ask for anything that was spectacular bells and whistles or add-ons, we're asking to continue to offer the excellence that we're offering, that we've offered at this point to our community, to our kids, from a great teaching staff and from the supports and programs that we have in place. If we go off the 43 cents, there is going to be an impact in some way. And I'm not saying that that's an easy decision on any part of it, but if we go off the 43 cents, there's going to be something that has to go, or something that we're going to have to move funding from one area to another area and eliminate what's there. On the capital side, as was mentioned, the state is giving us $266 million because we have shown a need for the new elementary, the new middle school, and the new high school. The state received 10 school districts put in overall $1.5 billion in request. We were put at the top of the list. We're receiving the most money of any district because of the need we have for new buildings. As was already mentioned, We don't go outside of the state formula to build our buildings. We've been very fortunate through planning and through design and working with partners that we've been able to design nice buildings within the budget that the state tells us that we can spend. We're not spending local money outside of what is allocated to that. So that's something, and I would also challenge our community to look at the other new buildings that have been built in our state outside of our district. We're on par with what's being built. We just happen to have more of those buildings because we're growing 300 to 400 students a year. The one part that you do not see up here is the bus lot at Alfred G. Waters. We heard you, we saw the survey data. I still think we need it. But people question the $4.2 million that was required to build that. There's a lot that goes into that. And I know it seems like, well, I didn't put my driveway in for $4.2 million. But there's things that you have to take into factor and that goes along with that. But for us to put an entrance out onto Boyd's Corner Road could cost us anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million just to put an entrance out on the Boyd's Corner Road. That would be part of that aspect of it. And you just don't put down a layer of blacktop and you roll over buses over top of it. There's a lot of things that would have gone into that. You also have water runoff, all that good stuff. But we realized that it caused a lot of hardship. We saw people on the survey saying, I voted no because of the bus lot, which I think is kind of crazy for a penny, but everyone has their reasons, and so we're going to remove that from our request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Barrows.
There's no vote on this at this time. Is there currently any questions, comments, or concerns from the board? Ms. Graham?
Questions, comments? No.
Okay.
Ask them. Concern, plenty.
Mr. Forson, Mr. Abrams, Ms. DeWitt.
I have a lot of concerns.
So I'll start.
It just got handed back to us, no, at this price. We're gonna go right back out at the same price minus 1 penny. And they're gonna say no again.
I think that's for us what we're supposed to talk about and consider. I think we all sat here and said it was a big number and we needed to ask the community what they thought, but that we believed in the number and we'd never put a number out that we didn't believe in. And I don't know how that changes.
So
Norm, go ahead, Mr. Forson.
Norm, are you done with your thought?
No, I'm just, no, go ahead, Mr. Forson, I'll pick up after you. I think it just got slapped down at 46 cents. We're gonna turn back out and say we need 46 more cents. They're gonna come back and say no again. We've done, and I'm not saying nobody needs money. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that.
What's your suggestion?
Well, I want to think about it, but I'm going to say I'm very disappointed in the cabinet recommendation, and here's why. First of all, thank you all for coming. We need to remember we all here, well, those of us here, I'm going to go out on a limb and say everybody in this room probably voted in favor of the referendum in December. I hope you all did. But it failed. More people cast votes against the referendum than cast votes in favor of it. And if we go out and say, yeah, guys, we heard you, more of you voted against it than voted for it, but tell you what, you were just wrong, we're going to run out the same referendum. I think that's a slap in the face to all those people who voted no. This is why we have the referendum process, to get feedback from the community. And more than half of those who voted against the referendum as proposed. And I'm reminded of the old adage, maybe it's not that old, but the adage that says the definition of insanity is trying the same thing again and expecting a different result. Now, I do think that we could have done perhaps a better job, a clearer job. I've talked to some people who don't quite understand the school funding formula. They don't quite understand everything that we talked about tonight. So we're going to do a better job explaining all of that. But the notion that we're just going to run it out again, and this time you'll vote for it, right? I think that's wrong. And I'll vote against that if that's the motion that this board makes. We need to tell people, we heard you, we listened to you, we're not going to run out the same referendum. And there were things in that 43 cents back then when we voted on it, I think in October, and we had a lot of discussions about it at the board level. I wasn't sold on all of them. Other people weren't sold on other things, but we came up with the referendum that the five of us thought was the best combination. You know, we didn't let the pursuit of the perfect interfere with the good. But now I think we need to take a closer look at everything that's in that 43 cents. I was not a fan of zero eyes at the time. We know, for example, on the constables issue, I assume that was in the budget, Matt, do we know? Because I know the governor put out his budget earlier today. And so Representative Hensley is nodding his head yes. So there's $500,000 in the request that at least for this coming fiscal year, we don't need because the grant is still there.
Well, it was requested, the budget hasn't passed.
Well, you are correct, but again, in an election year, I don't see that one getting cut. So we need to really look carefully. But if we go out at the same number, we will fail, I think. I'm sorry, I have to say that, because I think it will actually rile up those who voted against it even more. They came out to the polls, they voted against it, they said, come back, and then we go back with the same thing. That just doesn't make sense to me. And someone earlier said that sometimes the hard decision is the right decision. The hard decision is to go back at a lesser number, but I think it is the right decision. And the question is, what should that number be? And so that's what I think we ought to be focusing on. I don't think it's the bottom of the ninth with the bases loaded and the anti-referendum people winning the game. Maybe it's the start of a new ball game. Maybe it's the second part of the doubleheader, or maybe it's game 7 in a 3-3 tied series. So we're going to go out on the field and leave it all out on the field, but we can't shoot ourselves in the foot before the game even starts and just go out with the same number. So those are my thoughts. And we're not setting anything tonight, but I don't want people to have this expectation that, yeah, because everybody in this room is for the last referendum, and it failed. And we need to remind ourselves that, you know, we all live in our bubbles, but there are other people who feel differently, and they get a vote too. So we just need to remember that. So anyway, that's where I am. Obviously, we're not making any final decisions tonight.
Well, it's just a reminder to everyone that our job is to serve as the bridge between the community and the district. So like always, this is my monthly plea to the community. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. All of our email addresses are out there. We'll call you back. We'll reach out to you, but we need to hear from people between now and February 6th about how I feel about it. And we'll hear from both sides, but we do really value the input of others. I will say, after attending the town halls, the most frustrating part to me was people saying there is a lack of communication. And I've struggled with how you articulate this, but if you're interested in something, and I've equated it most recently to my daughter's in the process of applying to college. If she's interested in a college, we get on the college website, you find everything out about what you have to do to apply, and you equip yourself with information. If you're interested in our school district, everything for our referendum is right on our school district page. I don't know, and we haven't found a way that we reach the community at large. The community is way bigger than just the families who are in our districts. We can kind of reach all the families in our districts and our schools by district communication. But I heard from several families saying they didn't get communications. We held meetings, we went to schools, we put out signs, we had the referendum tab on our website, we made phone calls, we were at events. I just don't know what else we should be doing to make sure people know about it. Like people saying, I didn't know about that. And people had questions at the town hall about a referendum calculator. How do I know how much this is going to impact me? Well, in all of our resources, there is a link to the referendum calendar. It was on our website. But people in our community aren't getting that information. So I really, really want to hear how you think we reach people that aren't tuning into us. I mean, we're here, as Toshiba said, mostly twice a month now, because this is important to us and our community. But we need to reach the community to tell them the why. Does anyone else have anything? Dr. Burrows?
I mean, I respect your opinion, Richard and Norm, on that we took it out. And I will say, just there's a difference in this than 2013. I think we're looking at 245 vote difference. We know we have a consistency of no votes of about 3,100 no votes that come out consistently. We're 1,000 people short of what our usual turnout is. So we had 1,000 people that either thought, oh, it's going to pass, or I can't afford it and I'm not going to vote against the kids in the school district or in teachers, but I'm just not going to vote. So I don't know what that is. That's why I think it's vitally important for your voice to be heard, and for you to share, because it's not an easy decision. It's not an easy decision, and as I stated, we made the recommendation because if we go for a lesser number, there's something that we're going to have to cut or move that we're currently doing. And it's not a threat, it's just the reality of the situation. So, and I'm not saying that we can't go for a lesser number, but there's something that we're delivering now to kids and to people that we won't be able to deliver.
And so the trade-off is, do we run it out again and the definition of insanity, the same number, and run the risk? We already know it lost once. Do we run that risk that it fails a second time? Or do we do something less on the theory that 80% of a loaf is better than none, right? Half a loaf is better than none is the old saying legislatively, but I'm not saying that we dial this back to 20 cents or 25 cents or anything like that, but I do think we need to move it all 43. And I think would be a huge mistake. And we would really be disrespecting those who turned out to vote against the last referendum if we just said, yeah, don't worry, next time we'll get more people out to vote against you. The community spoke. We may not have liked it, but now we have to adjust it and move on. And what should that number be? And you know, Michelle said it, and I've said it, and we've all said it up here. Reach out to us and talk to us and let us hear from you. And you know, I know that you all probably supported the referendum. The people I really want to talk to are the ones who voted against it, because I want to take that one-on-one shot. And so if you know people who voted against them, pass their names along. But
they're on social media on the
some of
MOT
them are,
residency
I know.
page.
I don't get there enough, but I'm just very worried. And so I'll think about that over the next 2 weeks. I guess we're meeting in 2 weeks, right?
You have a profile on Facebook?
I do.
Okay, we gotta get you.
You just tag him on the MOT residence page, it's fine.
Yeah, no, if you tag, I like getting tagged, then I can read. But, you know, in the last referendum, I mean, I did spend a long weekend responding, because there is so much disinformation out there on social media, and people say things that aren't true, but then someone reads it and they just assume it's true because they want to believe it's true. I mean, social media has all its problems, and anybody who relies on it as a source of news, I worry about sometimes, but that's a different issue. Anyway, I'll
Are there any more questions, comments, or concerns on this presentation? Well, we have the tough task before us of spending the time trying to figure out what to do next. It's why we get paid the big bucks. Oh, wait, that's another myth we had to dispel in our volunteer role. Yeah, that's somebody said, I want you to first start cutting the school board's pay. And I was like, okay, awesome. Anyway, the next on the agenda is the establishment of the next meeting dates. The next Financial Advisory Council meeting will be Tuesday, January 30th in the Finance Conference of the Tonio Marcio Building. There will be a board executive session on Thursday, February 1st in the Tonio Marcio Building. This is a closed session. The next regular Board of Education meeting is Tuesday, February 6th. Please note that this meeting is held the first Tuesday of February and is a change from our regular schedule of being the second Tuesday of the month. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.